Hello, it's time for another video in the rune series after much delay. We've been going very slowly through this series because there's a lot of other videos I do at the same time, but we are going to get through it all. And in this video, we're getting to the final stretch, the final third of the runic alphabet, the third 8. The runes, if you haven't watched the introductory video to this series, consist of 24 runes that are divided into 3 sections of 8 runes each. And today we're doing the rune that's known as Tiwaz, or Tir, the Tir rune. And it's the beginning of the third 8, the third section. Now, the first 8 runes, which are headed by, I don't know if you can even see out there, the Fehu rune, they deal with elements of the inner world, that which is within, you could say. And the second 8, featured with the Hagal rune, they deal with cosmology, with things that are above or beyond, or however you want to put it. The third 8, which starts with Tiwaz, the Tir rune, they deal with things that are in the middle, the things of the here and now. And in a way, they deal with how to apply. They bring together everything in terms of how to make a direct application of these forces. So those are particular keys to operating with the different forces of reality in this, Northern European pagan system of cosmology or magic, whatever you want to call it, and of divination, of course. We haven't really talked very much in this series about how to use the runes for divination purposes, and that's because there's a lot of stuff out there about how to use the runes, some of which isn't, I think, very good, some of which is. At the end of this series, I'll do a video specifically about how to use runes, or how I would suggest to use runes when you're engaging in divination. But it's very important that you have to have a deep understanding with any divination system, whether we're talking about the I Ching, which I'm also doing a series on right now, or the tarot, which I completed a series, and you can see in the playlists of this channel, or the runes. You need to be able to do the divination practice with it really well. There's a couple of things you have to do. One is that it has to be a part of a bigger process of trying to understand yourself, right? You have to be in some kind of path of self-discovery, at least, if not to say a path of spiritual cultivation, which I think is what you really need. But at the very minimum, you have to be like looking into these symbols and applying them to your own consciousness. And so to be able to do that, at the same time, you have to develop a profound understanding of the deeper underlying meanings of these symbols. Not just the symbols of what they mean in terms of fortune telling or something like that, but what they mean in terms of their bigger purposes as archetypal symbols. So the Tiwaz rune is an interesting rune, and as you can see, structurally it's quite simple. It begins as a line from the Well of Rune and then branches off into these 2 kind of points. So it's upward pointing, and it looks, you might think it looks a bit like an arrow or something. It's probably meant to be a spear, which is a symbol associated with the god Tyr. And it's a very significant symbol. The spear was a very important weapon, right? It was a warrior's weapon. It was also, one of the first and foremost weapons of these primitive cultures. The word Tyr, or Tiwaz, which is the word of the rune, Tyr is the name of the god. Both of these, they derive from an older word. I mean, that's the, Tyr is the Norse word, and Tiwaz is like the old Germanic word. But then before that, there's a word that comes out of Proto-Indo-European, which is an earlier language that almost all European languages derive from, which is something like Dios. And Dios means God. It means a deity, right? Or the deity, depending on how you look at it, right? And it's from this same word that we get in Latin, Deus, which means God in Latin, right? Which today in Spanish, you see as Dios, right? Which is God. But it's also the same word from which you get the word Zeus. Zeus is derived from Dios. It was just a different, it went in a different direction, right? So there's an element in Tyr of this, the Father God, right? The God of the heavens. And of course, in the later period in Norse mythology, Tyr wasn't the main deity anymore. But that name and the root of that name would indicate that probably in the very ancient past, Tyr might have been the most significant god, a very important deity, because it was the archetypal father god. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind. And Tyr as a father god represents those symbols that are always associated with the father god, right? So you've got these elements of power, of strength. This is a strong rune. It's upright. Obviously, there's a phallic element to the rune, right? You could interpret it as kind of a phallic symbol. It represents stability, law, and justice. All of these are things that are associated with Tyr and that are also associated in the bigger sense with the archetype of the father deity. There's parallels to it in the tarot card of the emperor, and there's parallels in the I Ching to the trigram that is the heaven trigram, or creation, or for that matter, the phallus trigram. So you're getting into very fundamental archetypal forces. This is kind of the yang of the, in the Chinese system, the archetypal masculine divine force. And it's very interesting that the very next rune after it in this Aed, in this set, is Berkana, which is like the Great Mother, right? So right now, the first two runes that you see in that series are, father and mother, male and female, right? These prototypal forces, right? So like the Emperor and the Empress, right? These are forces that represent two very different concepts, right? One is of power applied, and the other one is of a power that comes from nurturing and from receptiveness, right? So the creative and the receptive. The rigidity of Tiwaz represents that power. It's the idea applied to oneself of trying to reach up to heights, right? To greatness, which in the context of spirituality can be the very idea of trying to reach up and commune to the heavenly force. And, like reaching up to heaven. And in terms of one's own life, it can represent moving forwards, fixed upon a goal, right? A singular course, remaining focused on the application of your will. So these are the primary symbols that are associated with Tyr, and you have this idea when you look at this rune of connecting to this divine power, this masculine divine power in the case of Tyr. Later you'll see in the next video in this series, who knows when that'll be, but hopefully not too long from now, the counterpoint of this, which is the feminine power. And it's very interesting in the three Aeds that you get. The first Aed, the one that's governed by Fehu, it tends to cover the idea of forces, of different forces. And the one governed by Hagal, it represents forms, right? Like different elements, you could say, different parts of nature, right? So Hagal is the storm, and you have the ice, and you have the fire, and all of these different elements of the natural world, of these symbols of nature forms. Whereas the first part, with Fehu being wealth, and then there's Answer that's knowledge, there's Lagus that's bliss. These are forms, right? These are not these are forces, rather. They're not formulated concepts. They're applications of abstract energies, you could call it. I've got a cat in the way here. So the third Aed, the one that is governed by the Tyr rune, it represents the combination of forces applied to form, right? So you have these forces in the first Aed, and you can see an element of that idea of forces in this rune. This idea of power, of strength as a force, but then there's also form here. There's the idea of the spear of acting on that force in the world, and I think that that's one of the central features of this Aed in particular. So, still got a cat here. Here, go back here. There you go. Good cat. So the first is force in the first Aed, and the second Aed is form, and the third one is force driven by form. And the first two parts of force driven by form have to be those two basic forces, the male and female, right? The sky father, which is Tyr, and the earth mother, which is Berkana, which we'll see in the next video. So that's everything for today. If you like this video, if you haven't seen it yet, you should probably check out the entire playlist of the rune series, where I'm going step by step through each of the runes. In the first videos, I kind of give an introduction to the runes, and whether you're a beginner or whether you're someone looking for more information on the runes, I think that the series will be worth your while. Be sure to check out the other playlists in this channel, and subscribe, obviously, and feel free to share this video anywhere you think that people might be interested in it. And if you want to keep up on my videos and my posts in other social media, there's a link in the description below for my newsletter, which you can go and sign up to, and it doesn't cost anything. And the newsletter will come out once or twice a month, and it'll provide links to my various social media. This cat is very determined. It'll provide links to my social media, and it'll provide some original material that I won't be putting anywhere else too. So that makes it worthwhile. But besides all that, when you subscribe, you'll also get a free copy, a PDF copy of The Path and the Power, which is my book that's a new interpretation and commentary of the Tao Te Ching, which is, I think, going to be very interesting, whether or not you're interested specifically in Taoism or Chinese mysticism. You'll find that there's a lot of application to what it talks about in there, in all areas. So be sure to do that. One note, that when you click on the link to the form, the web page that has the form, I think, is a script that comes out. So if you're using a browser that you have like blocking scripts, make sure to allow that so that it'll appear. Otherwise, you'll just get the page and nothing will show up, right? And when you do subscribe, to get the PDF, you'll receive a kind of a welcome email indicating that you've subscribed. Look at that email. I know most of the times people don't even look at those emails, but when you look at that email, you'll find the link to download The Path and the Power. So that's everything for today. Thank you very much.